So for those of you who are worried, oh, it's just a mad reskin, you got to get Ultimate Team, you got to spend all these bucks. It sounds like you can literally get the game, play the game, and be totally happy. What is up, everybody? It is Jake back with the MF Film Room. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be updated on all things EA college football, hit that red subscribe button. Remember, right now we got a special. If I can get to 1,000 subs by July 14th at midnight, I'm going to be giving away one free deluxe copy of EA college football. PlayStation, Xbox, doesn't matter. And if you already got the game pre-ordered, I'll give you $100 cash. Hit that red subscribe button. You are automatically entered to join. Also, remember to hit the like button and follow on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. If you like college football content, go subscribe to my other channel, Master Football with Jake Posey. Link is in the description. But enough about all that EA college football content. Let's go. Okay, so I will let you guys know. I literally got off where I came home and have just been reading the entire time. I have absolutely been going through reading and listening and this and that. There is so much content to get through today. I did my best to summarize it here. Again, I actually even asked Twitter if they could help me out, and actually somebody did. So this is me, and I was like, yo, okay, I need you guys' help. I saw Matt Brown, cover 3, Eric Rayweather, Good Game Bro, Andy Staples. What else am I missing here? I got a couple things here. I got one from the Gaming Tailgate. They absolutely did a perfect Gaming Tailgate. Thank you guys so much because they gave it to me all on a silver platter. So if you come over here to the Gaming Tailgate, they actually have literally here, we've got all the attendees who actually came here. Matt Brown, Bud Elliott, Robbie Collin, Andy Staples, Chris Vanini from the Game Media. We got Tyler Lyles of IGN. We got Bengal, Bordeaux, Eric Rayweather, Good Game Bro, Lauren WKR, or WKR, Mills Twitch, Mistress CIV, Not the Expert, and use code POP. So again, all these people out here, that was the group that was invited. Oh boy. So as somebody who is an absolute fiend when it comes to NCAA Football 2014, looking so much for this game to come out, this entire channel is dedicated to that game. I went through there and I tried to organize all this stuff. I've got a PowerPoint here with 18 slides on it. And again, this is not even an exhaustive list of everything that came out, but there's so many notable things to talk about. We're going to talk about those right now. So we're going to talk about big picture items. We're going to talk about what's kind of not happening with this game. We're going to go through the presentation of the game, some gameplay items on this. We're going to go through Road to Glory, some Dynasty items. Within Dynasty, we're going to go over coaching, and we're going to go through recruiting because we have so much to go through. All right, from the big picture perspective here, and literally every single person said this. Now, I know what you're saying. When everybody says something, does that mean they were asked to say something? Totally legit question. But everybody from what they said says this does not feel like Madden. We're going to go into specifics about that because there's a lot of things within there. Again, that's just a generic saying. However, there's certain numbers and facts that are thrown out there that, again, we haven't been able to compare them to Madden just yet. But it's going to be like, well, if that's actually what it is, if that's actually what's going on, there's no way it can be like Madden. We'll continue on here. So again, I'm trying to reference who I got these from because again, these came from a ton of people out here. Andy Staples basically said, if it sucked, I would tell you it sucked. It does not suck. Eric Rayweather says EA, cooked when it come to making this game. He said they did an incredible job. He was super fun. He said there's not much that isn't in this game that you could want. Of course, the people are going to be like, oh, what about mascot mode? Again, we're going to talk about that at some time later down the road. Matt Brown said, and this is one of the most important ones here from Matt Brown. He says, will you be able to have a successful offline single-player experience without opening up your wallet for packs, microtransactions, etc.? He says the answer to that is yes. So for those of you who are worried, oh, it's just a mad reskin, you got to get Ultimate Team, you got to spend all these bucks. It sounds like you can literally get the game, play the game, and be totally happy. All right, so what's not happening with this game? I want to go through those first because I think these could be videos down the road that we can make, and I'll go into some of the reasoning behind these things. So Matt Brown basically said here, hey, there's no FCS, and he thinks there's also not going to be a planned DLC for FCS teams. You got to remember here, the reason why he said that is it opens up a lot of questions when you think about that. So if you have the FCS teams, your Montanas, your Richmonds, all those other teams out there, your North Dakota States, big issue with that is you got to go out and make the stadiums. And first of all, there's hundreds of stadiums you have to go out there and make, and that takes a long time. We already talked about the water fountain in Arkansas State bogging down the process. Don't get me wrong. I hope that they're in the game, but I'm still a little bit upset about that. Same with you too, Ralphie. The fact that they have to do that, go make all the stadiums, hundreds of them. They have to also make sure to get the licensing with the schools, which might not necessarily be with CLC, the company that agreed with EA to actually make this game. Then you also have to get the fact that you have to pay these players. And again, what are you going to pay them? What's fair market price? There's a lot more that goes into that. They had a hard enough time with 134 teams. Imagining 220, 230, 240 plus teams be a huge issue. He also said there's no ability to take draft classes to Madden. One of the big issues with that was the fact that, again, they've got the license with EA College Football. They do not have the license with Madden. So if your actual likeness is in EA College Football and it takes it over to Madden, that's still your likeness. You're going to have to compensate for that. They said, you know what? No, we're not going to worry about that now. We're just going to have it this way. Also said, though, okay, well, what happens if we play 6 years in? Then can you take the recruiting classes and put them in Madden? The answer is also no. They basically said there's no way you can do that because somebody would find some code or this or that. So no draft classes in this game, no ability to do that in the game. Robbie Calland. So Robbie Calland had the best articles by far. If I had to go, I'm gonna link these in the description so you can see it. I'll link all these sources, as many as I can, in the description here so you can see them. But he had 2 articles that hit the ball out of the park. He had some of the best information out of these people. So it makes me think, did he get some of this like special agreement or something like that? Anyways, we continue on with him. He says the team builder and ultimate team were not mentioned during the 2-hour presentation for the game. Ben Haumiller, one of the lead developers on this team, he said, Dynasty is what we're about. We're going to get into that later on, way later. But again, let's keep on going, man, because we got so much stuff going on. Are talking about presentation. So they wanted to mention a couple items here in presentation here. So Chris Vanini, he mentioned here some of the specific new pieces of information. The average team has 4 helmets, 3 jerseys, and 3 pants. The average team. Does that mean that, again, Oregon's got plus 20? Does that mean that Penn State's got 1? Probably something like, there's probably some teams that are kind of simple out there. But for the most part, I mean, Oregon's got 20 combinations. And I just should make sure that's clear. Stock combinations. What I think that means is they have 20 different versions of helmets and then jerseys and then pants. So if you think about that, that's actually, I think plus 20 is probably pretty low. That's just my perspective here. 12 for BYU, around 6 for Tulane BYU. They got those, the powder blues for Tulane. Those are going to be sick out there. So those are some presentation items from Chris Vanini. Matt Brown also mentioned here, he says, you can pick play now as a different setting. So you want to play now in the national championship. I want to play now in the Cowboys kickoff. I want to play now in the SEC championship game with Washington and, UMass, something like that. You can do those sorts of things. You can play in those different environments. They also said they wanted to show that they showed a clip where a Penn State wide receiver scored a TD against Ohio State at the whiteout night game, and Zombie Nation played, and 100,000 plus fans yelled, "We are Penn State." It's supposed to feel like you're in the game. It's supposed to feel like it's rocking like that. Those late night huge games and those big time matchups. Also mentioned here, Oregon State players will wield the chainsaw if they get a turnover or a touchdown. Neck was a big one, not a really big one, but it was a small one that was mentioned here. It was like, is Neck going to be in the game? The song, it looks like it's a band song. I don't even know what Neck is. I think it's actually a rap song. Again, you guys fill me in on that, but it's going to be in the game as a band song. And then the stadium model for Hawaii is a generic one. I know that where Northwestern plays their games at, that's going to be just the old stadium because they're currently updating it. Vanderbilt's actually is the new updated version of the stadium, even if it's kind of still being constructed. But Hawaii, they're at the TC Ching, practice facility. It's something small like that. So they're just like, just give it a generic stadium. All right, talking more about the presentation, Cover 3 mentioned here, again, if you're Toledo and you're playing games, you're probably going to get Reese Davis's team and not Chris Fowler. Also, Kevin Connors from ESPN is going to be in the studio going back. It used to be Reese Davis in the studio. Now it's going to be Kevin Connors. Good Game Bro mentioned here, he said, from a presentation or gameplay perspective, this kind of bleeds into both of them. He says, are there still some weird moments? For sure. And he didn't go into specifics of that. I wasn't sure if that's crowd or if it's just like the fact that like sometimes somebody can fall down and land on their butt, but then they're under a foot and it doesn't register them being down. Again, that's me speculating. I don't know for sure on that. But again, he said that, it's a video game. It's not going to be a perfect simulator. But he says the sidelines will have those big play cards on the sideline. So you think about, unfortunately, one thing that I think that the game needs to realize is like, once they approve the headsets, nobody does those things, or nobody will be doing those things. They just got approved right now. So those big placards for the hurry up teams. Oh yeah, here you go. You got a duck. You got a picture of a Pokemon. You got this. You got a picture of that. Those are probably going away because they're just going to have the headset in the helmet now. Eric Rayweather also mentioned here. Again, Eric Rayweather comes over from Madden. He says the crowds are significantly better in this game versus Madden. Home field advantage, he says it feels like it matters. And he also wanted to make sure he noted that composure connected to home field advantage. Composure is a thing that's kind of a gameplay item, but again, it connects to the presentation. All right, Eric Wayweather, who is one of the best experts when it comes to Madden, has tons of updates when it came to the gameplay. He was one of the better ones on the gameplay that I found out there. Again, apparently we're going to get a big update today when this comes out. So this could all be, proven or added on to. So just stick with me so far. He says that the game is about 30% faster than Madden. Again, that's designed to mimic the high-powered offenses in college. There's a reason why the over-unders on some of these games are like 75 points or something like that. There's a bigger discrepancy between high-level players versus low-level players. Obviously, we've heard that before. He said he felt, though, like with Madden, sometimes has felt a little sluggish when it came to the new consoles. Remember here, this is the first football game for only current-gen consoles. None of that, it's going to be on it's going to be on Xbox One or something like that. It's only going to be on Series XS and PlayStation 5. He said here that, again, Madden does feel a little bit more restrictive, but he said both games do share a lot of animations, but college has a lot of new animations. Again, 1 foot in bounds. There's little things like that that are allowed in college. He says he didn't really feel like the ball carrier moves were as strong as they could be in terms of like, the bead, the jukes, the spins, the stiff arms. He did say that the left stick is more than capable of making people miss on the game. So a lot of people are going to be using that left stick. I know I am myself. He did say, in connection with that, is that defense feels like it's a little hard to play. He says tackling is really hard. Hit sticking is difficult if you don't come prepared. If you come with a wrong angle, you're going to look goofy out there in the open field. He also mentioned that, again, when he's scrambling with the quarterback, one thing about Madden that I didn't really like was that you had to have a special ability to take off quickly as a quarterback. Otherwise, it would kind of slow you down a little bit when you started to scramble. It says in this game, when you feel the top end speed of Jalen Milroe when you're taking off with a fast QB is pretty easy. If you're a defense and you don't account for a fast QB, it will hurt you as a defense. And then also here, he mentioned that tackles are, broken tackles are pretty frequent. He said maybe a little bit too high. But again, that was one thing he mentioned. It's weird because the moves aren't necessarily, very strong, but the ability to break tackles is pretty high. Mentioning with the campus IQ here, he says that it really changes the way you play football, and it makes sure you have to manage your team on the field. We're going to see what that actually means in terms of how many hits, how it actually works, because there's some tuning items there that we can't answer until we have our hands on the game. But again, he wanted to mention there that with the campus IQ and the wear and tear and having to manage your football team, it's very interesting what they've done there. He also said the new in-game passing mechanics, he can't fully reveal them so far. They are different than Madden, and it feels a lot better than Madden when it comes to passing, which is a really interesting quote there. All right, more on the gameplay here. And again, Andy, you could tell Andy Staples from On3, he hadn't played in a while because he's like, they can do O-line adjustments. I brought that up. The 3 of these aren't that important. So the full slide protection, the identify the blitzer, and the max protect, you can already kind of do those in Madden. He mentioned the half slide protection, which is interesting. I didn't notice that one in Madden. Again, whether or not this was in Madden 24, you guys let me know if I've just been playing the game wrong this whole time. Continuing on to the Cover 3 podcast, he said that running the ball felt smooth, more of a strategic feel to the run game as opposed to just ramming it through. He says linebackers also, when it comes to passing, don't pick off passes every single time. Mentioning here, layering of the football was mentioned multiple times by multiple people there. Layering means if you've got a defender here and a defender here, you throw it in between them. So you don't gun the ball in there. You don't tap it super light. You put it like a medium, like a not a 1, not a 3, but like a 2 is what layering the football means there. I also mentioned there that there's no X factors. Thank God. Now, they basically mean that there's no guarantees. Like if somebody's got an X factor and you give them the ball, they're going to break 2 tackles. There's no guarantee like that in the game. But he did mention some special mental abilities. You'll see this especially with kickers. Like if you're a freshman kicker at Alabama, you're going to struggle if you don't have certain traits within you before the game starts. And Matt Brown continues here on as well, and he says gameplay is much faster and looser than Madden, and unexpected plays happen a lot more often. He says you can't play it like NCAA Football 2014. Basically what that means is, that means he's currently playing NCAA Football 2014. I have it right over there. I am currently playing it. I'm probably going to have a pretty big ramp up when this game comes out. He says throw power is not just how far you can throw, but how fast you can throw. Again, we mentioned that before, the 1 throw, the 3 throw, and the 2 throw. So he says the pass velocity and angle matter in passing. Players have specific attribute bonuses which don't feel overpowered or guaranteed. As an example, somebody has an undisciplined play tendency. Somebody's got, tight spiral. Somebody's got an erratic quarterback. Whenever those are, they're not overpowering, but they are there. He continues on and says, you are going to notice playing against an overmatched opponent. He says, noticing that trying to roll out to the right to the bailout defender will come up and cause the defense to adjust. AKA, like, what you do is roll out to the right, and then you wait till the defender commits to you, and then you throw the ball right over the top. He's like, unfortunately, you're going to hit a lot. The wear and tear system is going to really, really hurt you in this instance here. As an example, potentially even your throw power could be hurt from taking too many shots to the rib. Again, that happens in real life. If a quarterback takes too many shots, they're not the same guy. Also mentioning the fact here that depth will be much more important throughout the season and even a game. The game wants to make it harder to cheese the game with the same play. And again, I'm so looking forward to them addressing cheater plays, but it sounds like wear and tear and the fact that you can adjust and the fact that you can't just do the same thing every single time is going to be something that they're going to prevent from being in the game. And the Cover 3 podcast continues on here with some gameplay items. He says a higher variance in play styles. We already know that there's going to be 134 different playbooks in the game. It says it took them a long time to get the veer and shoot offense in the game. Offense for Tennessee and Mississippi State with Jeff Lebby. Remember those really, really wide receiver splits? We're talking like one guy on this sideline, one guy on this sideline. That is the veer and shoot offense designed to create angles in between there. Chris Vanini also expanded upon that with custom playbooks and custom audibles. We already kind of knew that. Mentioned here that the Wake Forest slow mesh isn't quite in this version of the game so far, but it should be in the final version of the game. So they're still working on it, which means, again, the slow mesh is a very unique offense where it's like a pass with the run option. It's a crazy thing. He said there are 10 different playbook styles. So NCAA 2014 had air raid multiple, one back, option meaning the wing tee and things like that, and the flex bone. Pro style, run balanced, run and shoot, spread option, and I think the new one is probably that veer and shoot offense. Potentially going to be, the slow mesh from Wake Forest, but again, they're the only one that really runs that, which is the reason why I bring it up. All right, road to glory here. So Andy Staples brought something up where you kind of have to ask yourself. There was 5 sections that I wasn't able to find it out from anybody else who listed out the 5 different things you can do on your off time, but he kind of answered questions here that alluded to it. So those 5 are, do I party, work out, build my brand, study the playbook, or study the textbooks? Basically what that means is that those are the 5 different things you can do when you're with your time off. As in terms of road to glory, what do you want to spend your time on? You'll find out. It says it'll let you know when you have a test coming up in class 2 weeks, and you are clueless. You don't have to answer actual physics questions or something like that. But again, spending time on class might hurt your ability to build your brand. Again, their code for NIL is brand building, whatever that is. Also talking here with Robbie Callan, he says, you do not start in high school any longer, instead picking your star level as a recruit and what's important to you and getting offers based on what schools align with your pitch grades. Before they said there's no high school, which means you don't have to play through 8 games. And again, I'm totally fine with that. I mean, part of me likes it, but part of me is kind of over it, like 2 or 3, road to glories into it. And I'm like, oh God, I have 4 more games to go. Again, that's just me, how I feel. But just picking how good you are, I don't really like that. Again, I wish they had something. They can think about this in future games. One thing there where it's just like, all right, how good are you going to be? Are you going to be 1 star? Are you going to be a 3-star? You pick it up. So I don't know. Again, that's in the game like that. The players you can be, the types of positions you can play, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, middle linebacker, cornerback for road to glory. Again, he says, stay tuned for 2-way players. No word on that right now. It also says you can't adjust your dorm in road to glory, and the storylines basically come from your phone. How they come from your phone, I don't know, but that's where your storylines come from. Again, it's not going to be a Spike Lee joint, as Mike Straw said earlier, but it's going to be something where there's going to be some storylines, but again, it's not going to be a full-fledged, motion picture. And then Matt Brown also wanted to make sure he added here. He says the whole mode is designed to be replayable. You can get through a career in about 15 hours. Because if you think about that, unless you're a 2-way player, which we don't know about yet, and again, I don't know. Unless you're a 2-way player, if you were to go ahead and play a game, it's not going to take you very long to play that game. So in terms of actual playing of the game, like you start in the morning and you end at night, totally feasible to do that. All right, getting on to the Dynasty section. So for Dynasty here, Robbie Callan had the best article. He went through, he broke actually very, very specific things, not just, general things, very, very specific things that I was looking for. He did one of the best, jobs out of all the people out there. Again, link for his articles are in the description here. He said the Dynasty mode was meant to be a sandbox. For those of you who don't know, that is a term in development where it's like you can get in there and you can just design it any way you want. I don't know, form it like this, like a sandbox. You can form things like this, form things like that. Same thing with the game. Mentioned here that there's going to be 30 years of Dynasty that you can play, and I like that as opposed to the 60 because 30 realistically is that's how long most coaching careers at most are going to be. Again, you'll get the occasional guy who coached for 40 years or something like that, but that's generally what it is. You can coach with up to 32 teams online or offline. Custom conferences are back, but you can add more depth to that. You can change conference rules. You can custom protected opponents, and again, it sounded plural. Whether or not it's you can custom protect one opponent or you can custom protect multiple, it sounded like it was plural there. Conference schedule is not able to be adjusted from year to year, unfortunately. Once you set that, the computer kind of does that. But all current games that have been agreed upon in terms of non-conference are uploaded into the schedule. Week 0 is also possible in this game. Week 0, for those of you who don't know, it's just a fancy way of saying just playing the very first week. Whenever somebody plays like August 25th, August 26th, it's like, that's a little early. That's week 0. And then the CPU will schedule the kickoff game. So you can't schedule you're going to be in the Cowboys kickoff or the Duke's Mayo Classic or something like that. You have to be invited by the computer. All right, Chris Vanini had some good points here too as well. So when you're talking about making those dynasties, he says you could put 20 teams in a new conference, which is awesome. 20 teams, again, you notice that that's what the Big Ten and the SEC are kind of leaning towards doing. Oh yeah, North Carolina. Oh yeah, Clemson. Oh yeah, Florida State. Again, we'll talk about that later. You cannot create a new conference from scratch. So unfortunately, you can't do that. You can't create a new conference, add a logo. You can decide the number of league games. How much? Can you decide one league game? Can you decide a bunch? I don't really know. I do know that, again, right now, the Pac-12 only has 2 teams in it, Oregon State, Washington State. So they're a league. They have the 2 teams. They only have 1 league game. If that's how it works, then you can literally set up a 4-team league and have 3 league games. Again, that is crazy if that's what it's going to be like. We'll see more as we get closer to the game coming out. Also, you cannot schedule neutral site games on your own. That kind of has to be either invited or something like that. Again, you can't, do. I think what he means by that is like the Duke's Mayo Classic, whether or not you're, Florida State and you want to play Ohio State in Indianapolis or something like that. I'm sure you could do something like that. And also said here, again, one thing you mentioned with Dynasty, the 4-game redshirt rule exists. For those of you who don't know, if you can play as a freshman right now, on this next year, 2024, a player can play in 4 games and then not play the rest of this year, counts as a redshirt. Because that's what the rule is. You can play in 4 games, so you can play in a bowl game, whatever it is there. So that is a really cool rule that you're going to be able to be like, I don't know if this guy's ready or not for the field. You put him on the field, he's not ready. All right, we're going to sit you down until next year. Whether or not he transfers or not, we'll actually get into that in just a second here. All right, so coaching is actually really, really cool. So Robbie Callahan broke down the specifics. I'm telling you, Robbie, I appreciate it, bro. You broke down the specifics of this game. He says there are 11 coach skill trees in this game. There's 3 general archetypes you can go down. Are you a motivator? Are you a recruiter? Are you a tactician? And again, that is something that has gone into, Madden had something similar with your head coach. You could go down a path like that. Each of those will come with different strengths and weaknesses. Within the 11 skill trees, each coach will gain attributes in. You will not be able to max out all of your skill trees of this version of the game, as it's a departure from NCAA 2014, where you would max out your recruiting and then go max out your game management skills. Yeah, because everybody knew that on NCAA 2014, if you maxed out your recruiting skills, you didn't even have to do anything. Basically, just max out recruiting, don't be able to ice me, and you could just win all the games in the world. Now it's like there's 11 different trees that you can't max all of them out. I'm looking forward to that to kind of decide where you want to go with the game. It also says instead here that you'll have to figure out what's most important to you and build your coach accordingly, getting boosts in some areas, but having weaknesses in others. Continuing on with those weaknesses, as a matter of fact, coordinators are going to help you out with those. So it says here that, again, the goal of the game at every level is to make sure the decisions you make throughout matter and have a lasting impact. Talking about hiring those coordinators, he says your coordinators will also have skill trees, which means you can choose to have coordinators that fill in the gaps in your skill tree. So it sounds like instead of different tree, and you give points, it sounds like you take your coordinator and it adds on to your head coach, and then it boosts up the areas where they're weak, or it boosts up really high the areas where you're strong. Mentioning there, it's giving you a balance, but not the big boosts, or you can hire like-minded coaches that will unlock the highest levels of boosts in those areas. This is a really, really cool thing here. Also, this is kind of connected into recruiting. It says coaches and your coordinators have what's called a talent tree, or players who are attached to them from certain schools, your current school, guys that you recruited in, and other schools. Meaning, you can go ahead and bring on a coach. Let's just say you're out there and you're like, okay, I'm the head coach of Ohio State. I want to hire the offensive coordinator from Ohio. Well, I bring him and all of the offensive guys that he recruited over. However, I fired my offensive coordinator and all the guys that he came with. So again, your offensive coordinator that you hire and the one that you fire both have players who are loyal to them. Be cognizant of that before you go out there and just start making hires and fires and this and that, because those players will eventually leave, as we're going to mention here in the recruiting section. All right, recruiting, we got 5 pages for recruiting, so just buckle up really quickly here. So the Cover 3 podcast mentioned here, it's harder to win the Natty in Ohio U, by year 3 because the level of prospect that school is going to get is just different. How intensive is the recruiting? They said pretty intensive, although you can submit if you want. I put in quotations lame because if you do that, why are you even doing this? All right, again, Robbie. He had the most in-depth of all the people out here. Robbie Callan mentions here each year there's 4,000 prospects with 32 earning 5-star status. For those of you who don't know what a 5-star recruit actually means, a 5-star recruit means a future first-round pick in the NFL draft. That's what it's projecting to be. Notice that there's 32 5-stars. That's what that means. Also mentions here with pitch grades, they include proximity to home, playing time, sending players to the NFL, brand exposure, and many recruits will have deal breakers. Many high-level recruits will have deal breakers that Ohio U won't be able to overcome. Mention here that athletes are back and can play 2 to 3 positions. Anyways, is this person a corner or wide receiver, a running back, or a linebacker? What do we got there? It said there that the recruiting process is, as they worded it, a combination of some of their greatest hits, as they felt they rolled it back too far with the points-based system, the system in NCAA 2014. Hal Miller told me they simply thought they would fix that next year, and then they had to wait 11 years for the chance. So the reason why everybody's so mad at NCAA 2014 was because you just set points and then you would forget them. He mentioned there if there was an NCAA 2015, they would have addressed it. There wasn't, so it just stayed the way that it was. There's more detail in recruiting compared to NCAA 2014. Again, we mentioned that it's very, very dense there. The transfer portal is only open in the off season, and it takes from the high school recruiting pool of hours. We'll talk about that here in a second. It also mentioned that there is an early signing day with the portal opening after that closes. So continuing on, there's 3 big sections in recruiting that you have to kind of discuss. So the 3 big sections, the first one here is scouting. So the thing about scouting was NCAA 2014, specifically, you could scout 100% week 1 if you had that scouting tree available. Now, you can't. You can't do that. You won't actually be able to get a recruit's skill tree until they go on an official visit. So you have to stay within the recruit's cut line to keep recruiting, including the cut to top 10, cut to top 8, cut to top 5, and cut to top 3. It said it will be much harder, maybe even impossible, those are my words, to ignore pitch importance with raw amount of points. So as an example, you can't just throw the fence at somebody who's not interested at you. He's just not going to care. All right, recruiting visits. So again, the first part was just the scouting. The next part is the visits. So once you get into the top 5, you can bring them in on a visit. You'll be able to design a recruit's visit based on what they like. Losing to a highly ranked team won't hurt in terms of if they visit for that kind of game, but losing to a lowly ranked team will hurt you a lot. So you want to make sure whoever you schedule them against, if they suck, you better beat them. If they don't suck, they'll give you a little bit more leeway. And last but not least, mentioning the transfer portal here. So again, he mentions here that this is only open after the early signing period and it will be condensed. So service academies and Clemson can use their portal unlike real life. That's a little bit, hey, I didn't say it, he said it, okay? Also mentions here that players who were really close to landing in high school will eventually remember that in the portal, meaning you go after a guy, you finish top 3, you don't get him, but he goes to a school and then he enters a portal. Hey man, remember me back in the day? You'll be one of those guys. And similarly, how coaches have people who are attached to them. Well, ex-coaches will be like, hey dude, you remember what we did for you? We were right there. He might be more interested in you. Also mentions that you can encourage your own players to enter the portal to clear up roster space. Can I hear a Deion Sanders? No, hey, first of all, I love what he's doing out there. I know that a lot of people don't like it, but I tell you, I love what he's doing because they were 1-11 and they were 4-8. Now they're going to be a lot better this year. I think that as long as they can run the ball, that's just neither here nor there. Also mentions here that you can convince them to stay like in NCAA 2014. Somebody wants to leave. You can say, hey, no, hold on, man. We're going to give you X amount of time. We're going to give you this. You're going to get your degree, whatever. You can kind of offer them those sorts of things like in NCAA 2014. It says players will and will not enter the portal depending upon how you hold up with those deal breakers. So if somebody's deal breaker is playing time, their deal breaker is brand building, whatever it is, you don't hold up your end, they enter the portal. It will let you know throughout the year, though, who is at risk of entering the portal. Remember on Madden here, it has the ability to, if somebody doesn't get the ball, like you don't give a guy a ball one game and he's like, hey man, you got to involve me in the offense more. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to involve you. He's like, cool. You have to get that person 10 catches for 200 yards. If you don't, it's going to be a big hit. I don't know if those guarantees are going to work the same way, but the functionality is similar there. And also want to make sure that there's no explicit NIL, but brand building, quote, should be that part as a program point. So again, you're not going to go out there and actually give people money out. There's no, the game's rated E for everyone, so they're not going to be like, yeah, hire some strippers. That's not going to happen. So there is a crap ton to get through with all of that. Personally, in my opinion, the most important one out of all those things was the Dynasty recruiting. The big aspect was, they mentioned in NCAA 2014, you could just scout somebody right away, get 100% of what they know, and then decide where to go from there. Now, it sounds like you can't scout them until they visit. You can't visit until they're top 5. And even then, to get to the top 5, you got to already have a lot of things that they like, especially those top flight players aren't going to be liking your Akrons and your Texas States or things like that. So recruiting, big time improvement from previous years. Okay, I didn't even get through all of it, man. I got through a lot of it there, but again, check all that stuff out. What are you most interested in? I love the recruiting aspect of it. I'd also like to hear more about this whole passing, and the unique aspect of that. We're probably going to get gameplay today on that, but again, you saw all those updates. It's so awesome to see. Thanks for sticking all the way to the end. We appreciate it. Remember, hit that like button. Okay, I'm going to enter you into a contest. If we get to 1,000 subs, it's going to be a random drawing, 1,000 subs by July 14th at midnight. I will get a deluxe version of the game for somebody out there. PlayStation, Xbox. If you've already got it, I'm going to give you $100 cash. Hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also, hit the like button and follow on Twitter/X. Thank you so much, guys. That's it for me. I am out.